me see if I'm live here. Looks like it. And oh, awesome. Great. Satnam, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. And the full moon is tomorrow, as you probably know. And to be honest, I was not in the mood to do a live stream. And I usually do them on Sundays and Mondays, and I kept putting it off, because I was feeling so under it. And then today it's like, okay, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. So this is an experiment for me. I jotted down some notes, so I'm not as prepared as I usually am. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. Okay, that's great. So I want to pull up an image. Where is it? Images can speak so much more, better than words. And right here. Have you ever heard that term that you've been going through the ringer? Well, this is where it comes from. I remember my great grandmother had one of these, right? It's the old way of washing clothes. And so the ringer would be wringing out the water, right? The excess water. And anyway, that's what I feel like I've been through the ringer this week. So I don't know about you. Maybe you have too. So energetically, there's good news for this week and this coming month too. So some much needed relief from psychic pressure. So this is going through the ringer, right? All that water being squeezed out of the clothes, that we're going through the ringer in terms of our shadows and our ego attachments, and all our deepest fears, right, are getting squeezed out of us. All those buried emotions that haven't been felt are getting squeezed out of us. So the Aquarian age demands that we be our authentic self, right? So that all that excess weight, right, that psychic weight has to go. Okay. Back to me. So, Jupiter. I guess the big news is Jupiter. Jupiter. I have another good image of Jupiter. Here, what Jupiter's like. Right? I like this image to really describe Jupiter. I'm hoping everybody can see that, right? That's the laughing Buddha. So the first thing that we need to know, this is the full moon, but this week Jupiter turned direct. So I'm just starting to feel that myself. Especially today. So it's been retrograde since April, and Jupiter late April. So think back of like something happened back in April, like something just stopped, right? Stopped in its tracks. So Jupiter is positive and optimistic and jovial. The word jovial comes from Jupiter, the word Jupiter. So this means that since April, there's been a lack of optimism and positivity or inspiration. These are Jupiter words, right? So all those plans, right? Jupiter's like the future, long term, right? Goals, like setting goals. All that came to a stop, right? Late April. So there could have been some feelings of hopelessness coming in. And Jupiter's been in the shadow of impatience. So this shadow is about the fear of time running out. That there's not enough time to do this. I need more time, or time's moving too quickly. My life seems to be moving too fast. And also with Jupiter, because Jupiter is all about growth and expansion, that we wouldn't see that on the external. So you're making all this effort, and then suddenly, boom, you're not seeing any growth or expansion on the external, because Jupiter is saying go inside, right? You need to find that for yourself. So Jupiter in Vedic astrology is the guru, right? The spiritual teacher. And the guru is that which brings you from darkness into the light, that which takes you from the darkness of the ego into the light of the soul. So these last 4 months, Jupiter's really been pointing us inward to reflect on our goals, right? Are these really your goals, or are they somebody else's? Or I should do this, right? To see if it really holds true for you. So the universe is always testing us, always testing us. And Jupiter we know to be the giver, right? The great giver. And Jupiter rules prosperity and abundance. But Jupiter also brings losses. People don't talk about that. Because sometimes in order to gain and to expand, we need to experience a loss so that we can make room for that. So even with expansion, the spiritual truth is that the consciousness is always expanding. We're always expanding. Even if our life seems really constricted, right, contracted, it's actually part of this expansion process. So it's like you contract so that you can launch and expand even further. So it's all expansion, right? We're not going back. It's impossible. Evolution cannot go backwards. So Jupiter's been saying, okay, this goal is important to you. That's what you've been telling me. Well, let's see just how important it is when I start taking things away from you, right? So questions that can come up, right, in these 4 months could have been, can you motivate yourself when things don't seem to be going well? Can you reach deep down inside yourself to find that inspiration, right, when things aren't moving as fast as you want them to? And does your goal hold meaning and value for you? Even if no one else is valuing it, does it still hold value for you? So, and if it wasn't true for you, chances are you dropped it like a hot potato, right? Or you've changed your attitude towards these goals. And also, where's my other image? Where's the other one? Okay. Is this the divine justice? Oh, I don't think you guys are seeing my images. Okay, that's okay. It's not about being perfect. Okay. So Jupiter also represents divine law. So not man's law, but divine law. So what I see out in the collective, I don't know if you've been following this Jeffrey Epstein story. I've been following this for over a year now, right? It goes way, way, way back, but I caught on to it about a year ago. So, this is the man that's allegedly involved in the human trafficking ring, right? Who just died by alleged suicide, committing suicide, I put in the air quotes, and no one's buying it. Even the people in mainstream news, right, are not buying it. So what's really interesting is that the tentacles to the story, they are reaching so many areas of the ruling elite, right? The ones with power and money, like, material power and money power, who've up until now have been above the law, right? The man's law. So above man's law, but never, ever above divine's law. Everyone is subject to divine law. So the old way, would be just to sweep this story under the carpet and get distracted by something else, right? The media fabricating some news thing. Look over there. And everybody forgets about it. But people, I've been noticing, en masse are demanding answers and justice. So this is all part of this Jupiter moving direct, right? The divine justice coming down back to the planet to rule us. And this is one of the biggest shadows that have been brought into the light, is the human trafficking of children, right? This is our next big reveal that we need to see. All these shadowy shadows have to come to the surface, right, in order to be healed. So, I've always felt this, that the measurement of a healthy society is how that society treats the most vulnerable, and that's our children, right? Are we protecting the innocent, right? And we can see how sick our society's been because we haven't been doing that. So this is another thing to bring up, right? To be healed. So keep your eye on the exposure of all of these human trafficking rings. And I think we're going to be really shocked about how deep this goes and how far it reaches, right? Especially with the powerful elite, right? Because power is coming back to the people, right? And so remember, the karmic axis is on Cancer Capricorn if you follow astrology. Cancer's the people, the public, and Capricorn is the status quo, and that's the ruling elite. And also, I don't know if you're following this too, that the USA is trying to bring back the death penalty, right? Thinking that violence, this is the old way, that violence is the solution to all our social problems. And again, it's rooted in this belief of like the vengeful God, the Old Testament God, right? And about punishment, guilt and punishment. It's like so old. So also remember that Pluto, I talked about Pluto before, that's the base node of our evolution, and that's been in the shadow of psychosis in the sign of Capricorn for quite a while now. And this is all about not giving our individual power to an outer authority. So not giving your power outside of you, right? Not conforming. This is the old way. Then to know that you are your own authority. And that God and me and God are one, right? God is inside you, not outside of you. So we're seeing this, right? All the social uprisings. More and more people, right, are realizing this truth, that our outer authorities are corrupt. They have been corrupt, I'm generally speaking here. This is all over the world. And that our institutions are not serving us. And that our system is rotten. Our systems are rotten. And this is what's crumbling, right? So this is all good. It's not something to get afraid of. This is part of the takedown, right, of all the circus tents of the Piscean age, so that we can start building new tents for the Aquarian age that serve everyone. Aquarius is equality for everyone. We're all equal. So these are the two things that I can see in the collective right now that reflect this movement of Jupiter. And maybe you're seeing some other things too that you can mention in the comment box. And so what's Jupiter saying? It's saying to be patient, right? It's in the gift of patience, and patient with this process, patient with yourself and people around you, and to move more and more and more into your eternal self. That's your real self, your eternal self that lives in the present moment, that's connected to all that is. Because Jupiter's in the city of timelessness, right? That there's no time. The time only serves us to find the timeless, to discover our true nature. Okay. Oh, it's raining. That's awesome. I love when it rains. Okay. So I want to share the chart here. And the chart. Oh, it's really raining. Okay. So there's the wringer, in case you didn't see it. That's the wringer that I was talking about, the old way of doing the laundry, right? We're all going through the wringer right now. Okay. Okay. So there we go. And that's the chart. So it's the astrology chart, and then I put in the hexagrams, the gene keys. There we go. I don't know if you can hear that rain. It's really raining. Okay, so we've got the Sun and Venus. For this is the snapshot of the full moon. So Sun and Venus are in the shadow of intolerance, understanding, and forgiveness. Those are the gifts, understanding and forgiveness. So you'll see, right, my last video that I did was Mars and Black Moon Lilith in this fourth gene key. And there we go again. It's funny how the planets are repetitive in their messages, right? Because when this shadow moves into a planet, that's another archetype, it's another flavor, right? So it's been preparing us. Okay, so Sun and Venus are both in the shadow of intolerance, in the city of, right, the gifts of understanding and forgiveness. And then the moon, you see, is in the 49, right, and in the shadow of reaction, the gifts of revolution and rebirth. So they're opposing one another. So this is about valuing, right? The Sun and Venus. Sun's like the king, right? The king of the solar system. Venus is the princess, the goddess, the feminine, our feminine nature, and represents values, our values. And so this is about valuing forgiveness and understanding, right? Valuing those things. And also realizing that the old masculine ways, right? Chiron and Aries, you see that in the 17. That's the male. This is the wounded healer, right? This is the wounding of the male. That this old way of war, punishment, and violence isn't working anymore. We're not valuing those things anymore. We're valuing understanding and forgiveness. And also, if you think of your values, we're being called to live to our values and to be the embodiment of our values. So simple things like, well, I don't like how these business practices are going. Is how this business runs their work environment. They pay their workers poverty wages, right? So, okay, that's a value of mine. And then, so you got to live it. And live it means that you don't go to that store because they got a big sale and you're going to get a deal, right? So to live our values sometimes means to make little sacrifices and make the extra effort, right? So that's what I feel like Venus is asking us to do, to not be hypocrites. And it's not about beating yourself up. It's about, okay, how can I get more aligned with my values here and start to live them? Because when we all start doing that, then the businesses go that are rooted in fear and greed. They're just going to disappear because they won't be supported. Each one of us is supporting them, right, with our dollar and our energy. Because some people go, well, you can't beat them. I'm just one person. No, you're not. You've got a lot of power as one person. So the moon there in the shadow of reaction, right? The full moon, because we got to look at the full moon because it's really her day here, is the shadow of reaction, which I've talked about in my other videos, and then the gifts of revolution and rebirth. So let's break it down, how this intolerance and reaction work together. And we're so seeing this out on the collective, right, with the immigration, right? It's about the immigration, the southern border, the USA, how their treatment, right? And I'm not saying all Americans, right? I'm just like using this as a symbol. This isn't about blaming Americans. It's about looking at this as a teaching. Okay, so intolerance, which I talked about in my last video. You can get, if you want a deeper look, listen to that one again. So this is about moving beyond our emotional reaction, okay, our emotional reactions. So we think that we're just one person. I'm just one person. I'm having my emotional reaction. And most people don't even go to like, I'm having an emotional reaction. They go to, I'm angry. They actually identify with their emotions. That's even further. Remember, too, it's in Aquarius. It's about detaching from your emotions. So let's just break it down how this intolerance works. So there's not just one of you inside you. There's all your ancestors are inside you 257 people live inside you. There's a village inside you of all your ancestors. All your ancestral memories are there. So say a person is in front of you and you have a reaction to them. You have an emotional reaction, right? It has nothing to do with you. It could be your great, 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 great grandmother that has issues with that person in front of you, right? It's not really yours. So there's your Granny May. Let's call her Granny May. I don't like how that person dresses or how that person smells because he reminds me of that debt collector that threw my husband in debtor's prison, and me and my children, we died in extreme poverty. So that's where that reaction is coming from, that anger, right? That anger. So how the shadow works is it takes that reaction and then the mind, it's like, okay, I need a mental position. So the mind makes up something, right? It makes up a mental reason why you don't like that person. Or it makes up one, or it goes and gets the dirt, goes on Google and finds all the dirt on this person. And then boom, you have your mental position, and that you'll fight tooth and nail to defend it and to prove it, right? To prove it or disprove it. So that's what intolerance is. So this is what's coming up. It's all of our ancestral stuff that's coming up. All these ancestral stories are coming up so that we can transcend them, that we can make different choices, right? Not kill each other, continue to kill each other on this planet. So keep that in mind, right? Because this is being illuminated, right? This reaction, intolerance, shadow combo, and you. It's like, okay, that person I'm having a reaction to, and we're seeing it like out in the world. I mean, even me, I feel like I've been hard pressed to really transcend this shadow of intolerance and go to the gift of understanding, right? And you can't get to the gift of understanding and forgiveness until you realize that, oh, these reactions, they're not mine. They're my ancestors, and I can't be ruled by them. I can't be ruled by my emotional state, you know? And then what's the gift out of that is rebirth. And this is the rebirth of the new human, right? The rebirth. This is the revolution that's going on. It's not out here. The revolution is not out there. It's all going inside, right? Each one of us. Okay. Let's see what else is going on here. Okay, I want to read some comments before I go to the next part. Okay. So, Sasha Boyle says, regarding Jupiter, I've been really feeling connection with Ganesha. Yeah, Ganesha is definitely connected to Jupiter in this sense of gender fluidity, which is so interesting. Yeah, with all the Venus-Mars activity. Well, yeah, and then the Sun and Venus, right? Sun is very masculine and Venus is feminine. And this is what we're merging these two together, these two energies within us. And we see it on the external, right, with the battle of the sexes, but it's all really going on inside each one of us. Okay, so we did that, the 449. And Jupiter we talked about going direct. And then let's talk about the helper bees, because there's always helpers. So we still have Neptune in the 22nd gene key, and that's the gift of grace, right? Grace, graciousness. So that's helping us, and it's trining with Mercury. Oh no, with the South Node or the North Node. Trining with the North Node, and that's expansion. That's the gift of expansion, right? In Cancer, right? So we're having that grace, and grace is about just surrendering, right? Going with the flow and allowing yourself just to keep expanding, keep growing. I mean, a good mantra to tell yourself, I do this myself. It's like, I don't know who I am. I have no idea who I am, right? I'm discovering who I am through this process. But it's about surrendering to that I don't know. I don't know where life is taking me. I don't know who I am. I don't know who that other person is, right? I'm on this ride. I'm on the spiritual ride into the Aquarian age. So it's about surrender, surrender, surrender. And then, of course, I don't have the symbol up here, but the self know what we're letting go of is greed, right? And that's in the status quo. That's Capricorn. That's what we're letting go of. And this is the battle that we're in. Are we going to expand into the future? Are we going to contract and hold on and hoard out of fear, right? So we're seeing that dynamic out in the world. And then this Chiron in the 17, right? Chiron in the 17th gene key. And that's opinion, right? Opinions. And that's trining with Mercury. So Mercury is what we're thinking about and how we communicate. That's in the shadow of arrogance. And this is all about leadership. So to me, this is all about our male leadership, that we got to move out of opinions and fault finding. That's how the masculine mind works, is to find faults in that shadow. Whoops. I lost my chart. There we go. Right? Finding faults, not seeing the whole, right? That's the feminine mind sees the whole. And it's in Chiron, right? That's the wounded healer. It's in Aries. It's all about the masculine. So we're going to see this more and more, and we're seeing more and more women, right, stepping into leadership. And we're going to see a lot more in the future, right? Because we need more women in leadership positions. And you yourself, right? Most people that watch my videos are women. Is like you yourself have to step up, whatever that looks like, right, in your life, in your family, your community, your workplace, because you can't hide. If you're a leader or a teacher and a healer, you can't hide it. Yogi Bhajan used to say there's two things you can never hide. It's the smell of garlic and the teacher. They'll find you. People will find you. You can't hide wherever you go, right? They'll find you. So, and this is about right service with this 31, right, of arrogance, right? Arrogance, right? Because our leaders, the false leaders can manipulate language, and that's where they trick people, right? They're masters at manipulating language, using words. So people get who are not in their own authority get caught in this intellectual trap, right? But the true leadership now is this humility, right? The 31 is humility, right? Humbling yourself. As a true leader, you're serving those that you lead. It's a humble position. It's not like you do what I say, right? My way or the highway. It's this listening, right? Listening to the people that you're leading and then serving them. Yeah, it's a completely different way. And then the 17 on the other side is the gift of farsightedness. So this is about having a future vision for humanity, not a short-term vision for you, right? And how am I going to get something out of this? What's in it for me? And then what was the other thing that I wrote down here was Uranus. So Uranus went retrograde, but that's another video. And the 27th. So we're going to reflect more on this. I don't know why that's doing that. We'll be reflecting more on this selfishness as a shadow. And selfishness isn't just about me, right? It's also about like not even putting yourself in the picture. That's self-negation, and everybody else is more important than me, right? That's also selfishness. They're both ego, right? One's an inverse ego. I don't matter. I'm the worst. Everybody's better than me. Or I'm the best. I'm better than everybody else. It's both the shadow of selfishness. And then the gift there is altruism, 27. And 27 is all about food. It rules food. So it's about nurturing one another, right? And this is awakening. It's awakening us to our humanity, right? Okay. Okay, what else did I want to talk about here? I think that's everything there. So do people have any comments or what's been going on for you? Have you been going through the ringer? Yeah, I don't know who I am. Because as soon that's right, Kay. So as soon as you say I know who I am, right away you're limiting yourself, aren't you? Right? You're refusing to grow. And I notice people that are getting up there in age, you'll notice that they can go into that space of this is what it always is. It always has been this way. It will never change. And that 53, right? Expansion is telling us no, 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 no. Doesn't end here, right? We're keep expanding, keep growing. Yeah, really tired. Yeah, that's the exhaustion. Yeah, and this is, we're this is crunch time that we're in right now. We're going through a lot, and it's all going on inside each one of us. Okay. So I just want to remind people that the about the purpose to our suffering. There's a purpose to our suffering. So whatever you're going through right now, suffering is like the alarm clock. It's like the alarm clock. So it's not something to run from. The ego does not like that idea that we're wounded and broken, but we are. And this is what connects us all as a humanity is through our wounding and our suffering. I know it sounds defeatist, but it's not. So our whole world is set up to avoid our suffering, right? Take a pill, consume, right? Consume more and more and more, chase after things that we tell you is going to make you happy, right? And it doesn't work, right? You can't escape your suffering because your suffering is the alarm clock, and that's the alarm clock to your awakening. It's awakening you out of this dream. So, what to do, right, when you're feeling suffering is just to accept it and invite it in, right? It's like a guest, like just bring it in for tea, right? Bring it in for tea. Come on in. You're invited. I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to put any mental overlay on how I'm feeling. I'm going to not listen to my mind trying to escape this because the ego and the mind don't want you to go to your suffering because it's a portal. It's an energetic portal into your light, right? So it's the creation, the black hole, white hole. It's the black hole that you've got to go into, get squeezed, and then out you come out of the white hole. That's the creativity. That's you. So so it's an invitation. Your suffering is an invitation into the light. And and once you feel that, or if you've been on the spiritual path for a while, you can't escape your suffering, right? That human wounding that we all have. Remember, we've got 6 primal human wounds that we have to go through. That's like the 6 ring of fires that we have to move through and then come out into the light. And we all have to face it. It's just how we're designed, how our human body is designed. So it comes when you reach a certain frequency, then it gets triggered, right? The suffering gets triggered. And some people run from it. They want to run back into the matrix, right? Where it's all safe. The ego says you're secure here. And then other people, they get stuck there in the suffering because they don't really go move through it completely. Some people, they just get stuck in the emotions of it, in the victim. Oh, poor me, poor me. They make up an identity and a story about it, and they never get through. So it's about going straight through. And we only go straight through when we embrace our emotional self, right? Our emotional body. And then we come out. So if you allow yourself to really go through, right, and feel the sadness, feel the fear, feel the grief, or depression, anger, right, are the same. Going through just the whole process, you'll come more into the light, and that means more the light can expand in you. So that's the work that we're doing right now. So I just want to remind people that the 6 Primal Wounds program is happening. We're already been in the first wound. We're heading into the second wound. So if you want to do it live, you can still join in. And then it's going to be available too after after the live version. So you can do it, and then you can do it at your own pace. So if it's like, oh, I really want to stay on this wound for a couple weeks and 3 weeks, and right, so you can do it that way. I just thought I'd let you know that. And let me see some more comments before we log out here. So Cat Cast says, learning how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yes. People are fine being uncomfortable when they're going working out, at the gym. That's the ego is like, yeah, let's get uncomfortable. But to get emotionally uncomfortable or mentally uncomfortable, that's a different story, because there's no payoff for the ego there. So moving past fears of being a teacher, yeah, moving forward, taking action, waking up, so true. So remember, a teacher is not the personality. I remember when I first started teaching Kundalini yoga and meditation, I would get this nervousness, like, oh, I'm going to screw up, I'm going to do something wrong, right? And this fear, until it was like, oh, this is my ego, because I'm not teaching. My subtle body is teaching. My subtle body is holding all my experiences that I've moved through. That's what's doing all the teaching through the golden chain, right? If you teach Kundalini yoga meditation, you're tuning into a great lineage, right? So that's what's really doing the teaching. So then it was a huge flip. It's like, oh, whenever I'm having those thoughts, I'm in my ego, right? And when I just focused on serving other people and it had nothing to do with me, I just have to show up, right? And then it was just way more relaxing, right? So just tell yourself that, Cat Cass, is that you're not doing the teaching. It's your subtle body that's doing the teaching, right? And then you can let go and you can just really relax. And then if some people have nervousness and fear, well, what if I give the wrong answer to this student that's asking a question, and the mental pressure? And it's like, oh, let all that go too, because here's a hot tip right here, is that anybody with the question also has the answer, because we live in a plane of duality, polarity. So wherever you have one, you've got the other. So that means if a student comes with a question, they also have the answer. All you have to do is just hold the space, right? And the answer is contained within their question. That's what I've learned through teaching. And sometimes in workshops, sometimes in the early days, I would kind of get a little annoyed if a student asked a question, because I felt like it was taking away from the flow. They wanted attention or something. And then I would just turn it back on them. So, well, what do you think? Right? And out would come this beautiful answer from the student, right? That was just like this beautiful, eloquent answer that was perfect, right? So it's easy. You want it to be easy as a teacher. And remember, we're not being persecuted anymore. In the old times, if you spoke the truth, if you're a wise woman, right? If you're a crone, you would just be, and you spoke the truth, you'd be persecuted, speaking the truth. But we're in a different time now. We're being supported by the light, right? Rather than being against the dark. So that can come up too, right? Those past life memories. And your ancestors, let's not forget them, that have been persecuted. Okay. So Aubrey says, lately I've been realizing how I'm not close to my partner, and I expressed to him openly that I know that it's on me to leave this relationship alone. And like you said, I allow my emotions to flood. Because you don't have to do anything, right? If you're realizing you're not close to your partner, it's because you're not close to yourself. Like, you have to use your relationships as a mirror to what's going on with you and your soul. So I like that you say that, because the mind and the ego are like, I've got to leave him. I've got to do this, or I've got to go into couples therapy, or I got to do this. It's like, leave it alone and go inside and resolve this. And then as you resolve things within yourself that your relationship is showing you, then it will just miraculously unfold. Suddenly you have more intimacy with your partner because you've got more intimacy with yourself. Yeah, exactly. See, you're on it. See, everybody has their own answers. And especially women, right? Yogi Bhajan used to say this: women are their own psychologists. They're their own psychologists. And all they need to do is get to be with one another and chat it out, talk it out, right? And then come up with their own solutions. In India, it's called peanut time, where they would be shelling peanuts. The women, they get together and shelling peanuts. And peanut time is like talking about your issues with your family and your partner and things like that. That women just have to get together and talk it out. I'm going to book a reading from you soon. Yay, joy. Yes. Wow. Okay, I understand. Okay. So there we go. Well, thank you, everybody. And here I was, not get my thing up. Okay. Got to get good with this. There we go. Okay. Here we go. That's me again. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And look at me. I feel so much better. I was not in the mood, as I said at the beginning, to do this live stream at all. But I always feel better when I serve. So I have to remember that too. Okay. So have a great full moon. And it's always a good idea to do some kind of ceremony or intention or during the full moon, and just whatever emotions are coming up for you, just bring them in, invite them in, have some tea, have some coffee with them, and then they just want to be felt and acknowledged, and then move. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Satnam Aloha. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are in the world.